today we're talking about marketing psychology, namely because, as you guys have said, is a very big aspect to getting good results when it comes to advertising. And I do believe there's a distinct difference between the average or the good marketers out there and the great marketers out there. And a lot of the times it is because what makes you great as a marketer goes beyond the tactics that we use. It goes beyond the softwares and the platforms and the ad platforms that we use. It is what we're actually fueling those platforms with that actually drives results, which comes from what is the ideas that we're creating? What is the positioning that we're creating? What are the creative nuances that we're adding into our videos and our images or our emails or our ads or our websites that actually drive the results, right? So with that said, all right, so today we're going to talk about dark arts of advertising. And ultimately what I'm trying to do here is this is how most people see marketing and advertising, right? It's very plain, but really, the more you dive into marketing, as you guys already know, because you're professional marketers, there is so many different layers to marketing and advertising and sales that is deeper than just marketing and sales. It's more than just media buying. It's more than just email campaigns. There are nuances to why you do the things you do. And so what I want to focus on is the nuances of messaging and positioning and the nuances of psychology that we can play into advertising, right? And so one of the things that I think is really important for anyone who wants to develop a better understanding of psychology or utilizing psychology in your marketing is to understand that a lot of the ways of getting good at it comes from two things. One, you have to develop self-awareness, very, very good self-awareness. Developing an EQ, an emotional intelligence, right? Which ultimately emotional intelligence will start with you understanding you as a human. But once you can start to understand you as a human objectively, not covering over the areas that maybe you wish you didn't act like or the ways you wish you didn't think like, but accepting them and understanding them, when you can do that for yourself, you can start to do it for other people, right? And a lot of getting good at marketing when it comes to psychology is the acceptance of how people work, right? Not how we hope people to work or how we would like people to work, but understanding ultimately how people work, right? And so this is what we're really going to dive into today with these psychological principles. So skip past this. Overall, realistically, if you can train a market how to think, which is ultimately what we're trying to do, then you will get more results and success. It's better than trying to win an argument with the market, right? Especially when you think high ticket sales, a lot of the strategy of how you want to nurture the market when it comes to bigger conversion decisions, not just impulse buys, but bigger conversion decisions, the best marketers and the best salespeople in the world will understand that I have to train someone how to think, not what to think. If I can get them to understand how to think, and I can train them how to think, then ultimately they'll come to their own solutions, right? Question, right? Because in sales, a lot of times the idea is, how do I overcome every objection, right? Which actually is great to a standpoint, but there is a deeper area you want to go. Because, easy example is, how many of you have done something that you knew you maybe shouldn't have? There's plenty of reasons not to, but you did it anyway. You went out too late. You know you shouldn't have gone out, but you went out late because the friends wanted to go to hang out, or maybe you drank too much, right? Or maybe you had that food item, you cheated on your diet, right? Or you bought that thing that maybe you didn't have enough budget for. You went on that vacation that maybe you shouldn't have, or you didn't have the money for at the time, but you really wanted to, so you did it anyway, right? In those situations, it was not a matter of there are no objections, therefore I converted, therefore I made the decision. It was actually that there were objections. There were plenty of reasons not to do it, but you did it anyway. Why? Because you wanted to. So the best marketing in the world is not something that overcomes every objections. The best marketing in the world is something that understands what the prospect truly wants more than anything else and can create a clear pathway and understanding for them to achieve what they actually want more than anything else, so that it doesn't matter what objections they might have, they still convert because they wanted to, right? And that's the level that you're trying to get to. But the only way you get to that is by truly understanding human psychology and how people work, right? This is what crafts more potent advertising and marketing. Cool. So to do that, the first step to do that, for my marketers in the room, how many of you ever heard the whole idea is that your marketing should take someone from their hell to heaven, right? What is their pain and what is their desire? How many people have heard that before or work off of that philosophy? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. Put like a 1 in the chat if that's true, if you know it. Million times. Yep. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Yep. People know this. Amazing. That's awesome. Here's the thing though. That skips over the bridge, right? We always think about the bridge as the product, right? You take that person from their hell, their pain point, and you bring them to their heaven, the desire point, and then your product is the bridge. This is true, but not necessarily true because in and of itself, they are unaware of your product or service. What actually is the bridge from someone going from hell to heaven is a motivator, right? There is a motivation for why we want to achieve that heaven, why we want to go to that outcome. And the motivator is the thing that can oftentimes be forgotten in most people's marketing. They talk about the pain, they talk about the desire, but they lack the addressing of the motivator that actually carries someone across that bridge, right? So there are 9 psychological motivators that humans have, right? And you can see them listed here: achievement, autonomy, belonging, competence, empowerment, engagement, esteem, nurturance, security. These are one of the motivators or multiple of the motivators that is actually going to be what drives someone to that action. And so in our marketing and advertising, we don't just want to go, what is their pain and what is their desire? What is their hell? What is their heaven? We also want to understand and ask ourselves, what is the motivator that would cause them to want that desire or want them to run away from that pain? It is going to be one of these things. And so when you can understand what their motivator is, now you can kind of start to go, what should my marketing holistically start looking like? Should we be bringing feelings of the autonomy or the esteem or the nurturance or security or competence, empowerment, achievement, engagement? Which one of it is this? And once we can understand what the motivator is, now we start wrapping that with the desire or wrapping that with the pain, and it becomes even more potent. Does that make sense? So I'm going to cover quick 3 legs. This is ultimately what we want to build into what I call a sales argument, or the overall, what is the whole package for what we're doing. And then I'm going to show you some of these principles and show you what motivators those principles actually tag on to, okay? So the first thing, if you think of my sales argument as a 3-legged stool, right? One leg is gone, then the whole thing falls over. The first leg would be desire, okay? This is fairly basic. You've heard this all the time, right? However, if your offer basically has to capitalize on the market wants and yearns for, it is motivated by, okay? When we're marketers, what we're trying to think is, I am the doctor and I'm trying to diagnose my market accurately, okay? Here's the thing though. The cure that we provide on the front end, what we entice them with on the front end, has to be a cure that they already have in mind. It has to be similar to what they already have in mind. Okay. This is why oftentimes, tell people, like, there's been businesses, right, that are ops related or something like that, or business coaches you've probably seen all the time, and they try to advertise some mindset thing on the front end, right? Because that's what business owners need to fix their lives, right? They just need mindset, and it flops. Why? Because almost no one thinks that mindset is their problem. But people will opt in or will be attracted to a spreadsheet or a Facebook ad template or a sales script that closes millions of dollars, right? Because we will think and misdiagnose ourselves. This is what we do. This is why we need experts. But as marketers, we have to bring in line to something that they already think is similar to what their cure is, right? So the first leg that we have to attach is, what does the market think they need? What do they think they need? What are they enticed by right now, right? And then we want to articulate that desire so succinctly. Eugene Schwartz says, so that the prospect can visualize every drop of satisfaction. We want to paint the clearest picture of their desire. That's the first leg, okay? Second leg, identification. So we can't just talk about the desire that they want, right? But we also have to in line with, what is the prospect trying to fulfill inside of themselves? Meaning, we all in life are trying to fulfill and force the identity we are trying to achieve, right? This is why we buy the things that we buy in the way that we buy them, okay? And so when we're looking at the identification piece, people don't just buy the products or things in their life for the solution that it provides alone, but it also, we buy things for what it says about us, right? This is why some people will shop at Whole Foods versus Walmart. They'll shop at Gucci versus Nike, right? They can get the same things in multiple locations, but the different places or the way they buy them says something unique about ourselves and identity. We're enforcing something, And it could be a real enforcement or it could be a fictional enforcement, right? But we are always making a decision, not just for the utility of it, but what it also says about us. Another example is, why do we buy a Prius versus a Ferrari, right? They do the same thing, they're a car, but it says something unique about our identity, and there's something that we're trying to enforce for why we made that selection. So we have to get that piece right. Not just the desire. Now we have to make sure it enforces their identity that they're trying to achieve. And then finally, belief. We have to build belief, right? So for any prospect who makes a conversion decision, they must be affirmed in two different areas, right? One, that the belief is being enforced. So having their current core assumptions and belief reinforced, right? So we want to give people the security that they're making the right decision. Okay. No one wants to buy something and then feel like we made the wrong decision. This is where buyer's regret or buyer's remorse can come into, right? And it's because most of the time during the conversion process or immediately after they converted, they were not basically enforced that, hey, they made the right decision. Okay. And so even from a marketing perspective, as we're looking at things, what we want to be doing is, how can we reinforce someone's decision when they buy? When email is creating their welcome series for any new customer, our first thing should be, how can we reinforce the customer's decision that they made the right choice? Right? Those first few emails, so important, right? That, hey, it's not just they bought the product and now it's like we want to sell them more stuff, but it's like, how can we go overboard and going, man, they made the right choice. Man, where they're so welcomed in this new community. Wow, we're so appreciative of what you have. Or, hey, here's next steps, giving them absolute clarity on the checkout process, the delivery times, whatever. You got to reinforce the beliefs, right? Then the next thing is that their decision will not blow up in their face. Right? Similar to what we just talked about. So the first thing is, hey, you made the right decision, and the solution that you're going after is the right solution that you're looking for. Then the next thing is that, hey, the decision you just made is not a bad decision and you did not make a wrong one. It's not going to blow up in your face, right? So as humans, we want to feel secure in any decision that we make, right? We not only just want the right thing and attain the right things, but we also want our current perception of the puzzle pieces to be correct. Okay, we don't just want, hey, I wanted this item, wanted that item. We also want to believe that, hey, when I looked at my problem, I did make the right decision and found the right solution. Okay, now the weakest form I see of this in marketing is guarantees. This is a way of enforcing belief, but it's not really a way of building belief. It's a way of hedging risk, which is a way of kind of promoting belief, but it's a very, very weak way of doing this. But you'll see that this is, especially in the info space, this is the main area that people do to try to build belief. It's just, here are guarantees and here we're taking risk off the table. It is a way to do it, but it is the weakest way to do it, which is why we see it everywhere, because most people do not put effort into actually developing belief. We just want to remove risk, right? And so the more we can actually think about ways to build belief in other ways, the easier it is to build sales for the long term, lower churn, lower returns, and ultimately build a better brand, okay? Because just the whole idea of my business reputation is the idea that if things go to shit, then you get your money back. That's not building a great brand. A great brand is one where people don't even really think about the risks because the reputation and the quality is so good. Make sense? Art one, let's dive in. Question, who's wearing a diamond ring? I don't even know why I said this. I can barely see everyone on this call. So anyway, if you're wearing a diamond ring, let's talk about the first art, which is called conspicuous consumption. Conspicuous consumption. Okay. Basically, this is the idea that we will buy luxuries and spend money on lavish items in an attempt to enhance prestige. Right? And ultimately, this will play on multiple motivators. Achievement and belonging are the main ones. Esteem followed after this, right? But here's the concept of conspicuous consumption. The idea is very simple. It is a term used to describe the spending of money on displaying of luxury goods and services to extend one's own prestige and indicate social status. It is a display of wealth meant to impress others and create an image of success and power and sophistication. Okay, so this is just the whole idea of I'm buying things not necessarily for the utility, but really what does it say about me and how can I promote my status in the community, right? So here's the idea. Ultimately, until the late 19th century, diamonds were found only in a few riverbeds in India and in the jungles of Brazil, a few pounds a year, right? So in 1870, a huge diamond mines were discovered near the Orange River in South Africa, okay? So this whole idea, really before the 1870s, diamond rings were not really a thing that people bought. Not for engagement or wedding rings, not for jewelry. It just wasn't a thing that we just did as humans. It was not a normal thing. Right. And so, but when these diamond mines were discovered, right, supply goes massive. Miners needed a way to control the supply. Right. So they created this cartel, essentially, called De Beers Diamonds, which I'm sure all of you now know who De Beers Diamonds today is. They're a jewelry retailer, right? So De Beers formed a cartel. So all these miners that were all private, all mini companies, they all got together and created this one massive cartel so they can control the whole world supply of diamonds, right? And then they created De Beers. They needed a way to control the supply, so they did that. They created the cartel. But next, though, they needed a way to control demand so that people didn't just sell the diamonds, right? Because what happens if now you have a big supply, you start selling all the diamonds, right? But then now there's a bunch of diamonds in the marketplace and people will start selling them. Well, then eventually the market will become saturated and the value of diamonds will go down, right? Which then means the miners and the companies would lose all their money because now diamonds just aren't that valuable because everyone has them, right? So they couldn't just control supply, they had to control demand. And this is where their marketing campaign came in. They went to a company called N.W. Ayer and Son, which was an advertising agency out of Philadelphia, founded in 1869. And Ayer and Son basically promoted this concept of conspicuous consumption. This is what they wanted to do to sell diamonds for this brand. So think of it, guys. This was an agency like us. They were meeting in a room. They just onboarded this client, De Beers Diamonds, and they're like, man, we got to come up with a concept to make sure that the world's supply of diamonds is controlled for this company and that this company can be successful, right? So imagine as I'm reading this, I was getting so excited. I was like, this is literally us. We're all on this call. This is NWA and Son is us right now, right? So they come up with this concept and they pitch it to them, right? So they have this idea. The substantial diamond gift can be made more widely sought symbol of personal and family success and an expression of socioeconomic achievement. They stated in the report to promote the diamond as one material object which can reflect in a very real way a man's success in life, right? To us right now, this is not that big of a deal. We're yeah, big whoop, right? Because we're in the context of it now, right? But think about it this way, back then, again, diamonds and a diamond ring was not something people did. It was not even something people valued or wanted. It wasn't a girl in junior high or high school is someday my Prince Charming is going to give me this incredible ring, right? And then we're going to have this life. It wasn't even a desire, right? But N.W. Ayer and Son is saying that we can turn this rock that people don't really care about into this idea of however big or however many carats someone has is now the status of that man, right? And now, nowadays, all the girls, right? Oh, what happens when someone gets engaged? Oh, let me see the ring, right? Now they're admiring it, they're loving it. Back then, it wasn't a thing. They wanted to propose this concept and said that we could make this happen to the world, right? So this is what happened. They spread the word of diamonds. They spread the word of diamonds, and they had it worn by stars on screen and stage, by wives and daughters of political leaders, by any woman who could make the grocer's wife and the mechanic's sweetheart say, "I wish I had what she has." Right? So this whole idea is okay, influencer marketing back in the 1800s. They're we're just going to go have political leaders, movie stars, actors, singers. If we can get it in all of their hands, then that's how we can start making diamonds desirable, right? Because now all the people who don't have it, never thought to have it, all of a sudden they're seeing all the people they look up to start having these things, right? So this was their concept. Right, so in 1939, De Beers Diamonds, U.S. sales amounted to $23 million at wholesale. By 1979, had helped De Beers expand its sales to $2.1 billion in sales. And the first marketing and advertising campaign for De Beers, women know this saying today, "A diamond is forever," right? One of the most famous slogans of all time was created for a cartel of how to manage diamonds. One of the big things here is that I didn't have in that slide Was their whole idea, though, it was even super long term, right? Because they knew that they couldn't go after people who were getting married today. They knew that they couldn't go after people who were going to get married in the next 3 or 4 years, right? Their marketing campaigns that they put up with movie stars and actors and political leaders and stuff, they hosted junior high assemblies and started educating them, because their whole idea was our market today won't be educated to go, I want diamonds. But if we go to the people who will get married maybe the next 10 years, next 15 years, we can convince those people by the time they come of age that it is the typical thing to get diamond rings, right? So bringing this all back into key for art number 1 for conspicuous consumption is understanding that if you know your market is motivated by status, esteem, belonging, achievement, one of the things you want to focus on is, how can I make this feel luxury? How can I make them feel like by making this purchase decision, they are enforcing some characteristic about themselves, that they are of a higher class or a higher level of achievement, right? By this thing, their friends, when they come over to their house, or their neighbors are going to get jealous. These are the things that you want to start keeping in mind. And this is the principle you can implement if you understand that about your market psychology, right? So, easy examples here. The ways that you can start doing this: highlighting social impact. So showcasing how your brand's products or services are making a positive impact on the world. This is a way that you can actually increase their feeling of status, right? This is why a lot of, a charity, I just went to one several weeks ago, right? They were wanting to raise money for their anti-human trafficking organization. What do? They throw an auction gala, right? Because they want to get people in the feeling of feeling higher status, feeling more expensive, feeling more generous, and they're at this higher class event, they're naturally going to spend more money, right? And so that was a great way for them to play on the conspicuous consumption. If we can get people to a fancy dinner, to a fancy thing, have some influencers, celebrities inside the place, people are going to want to feel more generous, right? Next, creating VIP experiences, right? So this is always great for e-commerce brands. It's like, how do you get people into a higher status of a customer? Hey, you're not just a customer, you're becoming a VIP customer because you spent so much money, right? This is why e-commerce stores will also have the whole idea of, hey, you're only $50 away from entering this or getting this benefit or this award, right? If you've ever shopped at a designer store and you go in, right? What happens after? You're probably getting a text from the salesperson that you had in the store inviting you to a VIP showing, right? There's all these different practices that you can start doing. Using aspirational imagery, showing the person in your creatives or on the website, what identity do they want to have, right? Showcasing celebrity endorsements is another way to do this, okay? So easy examples: personalized language that you'd see before, right? You're invited to the exclusive brand name VIP program. Be the first to see the unveiled collection, right? You want to make people feel exclusive and of a higher status if you know that's their motivation. Cool? Awesome. Art number 2, autonomy bias is the tendency to favor self-determination, right? As humans, we want to have the feeling that we're in control, right? We want to have the feeling that we can make our own decisions and that we are in control of the process, right? Often at the expense of considering the impact of those decisions on others or on the wider system. But as humans, we want the feeling to have control, right? So this is the simple concept. But humans have an innate desire to be in charge of themselves, right? We can, as marketers, can attract customers by offering them control or the feeling of control and the chance for them to choose their own experience, choose the products, have custom products that they're choosing or selecting, right? Custom packages. The more we can make people feel in control, the better. Here's a super simple example, right? This was Smile Train. When they were running their advertising, they did a campaign, basically. They were a nonprofit company that helps children with cleft palates around the world. And they wanted to do a marketing test, essentially to see if they could lift the amount of donations. If any of you have ever worked on a 501c3 or a nonprofit, you know it's pretty hard. The whole goal is, how do we get more donors? How do we get more donors? And it can be very difficult to do, right? And so what they did, the test, is they wanted to see if there was a lift in donations. And essentially what they were going to do is they had they were going to just test basically the headline on the envelope, right? And it was the same, everything else was the same sales letters, same everything. They were just going to change the headline on the envelope. And all they wanted to do was see if they can increase the donations. And this one change was just adding, make one gift now and we'll never ask for another donation again. It was implementing the concept of giving autonomy to the end user, making the end user have a sense of control, right? And that one change, those who received the once and done letter donated $22,728 in the initial test. Of those who received a standard letter, donated $13,234. But that's not all. Out of all of those who received the once and done letter, the one that said we'll never ask for another donation again, only 39% of those people indicated that they actually never wanted to be contacted again, right? That 39% only received a thank you letter with a receipt for their donation and a picture of a child who helped the organization. That left 91,500 donors who indicated they wanted to either receive limited communications or regular updates from Smile Train, right? So after they did that test, though, they also expanded that test, and over $260,000 was donated, a 46% increase because of that one test, that one line of copy that allowed someone to feel like they were in control. So the whole idea, though, is that when you put one option in front of a prospect, right? One option in front of your prospect, this is called the Hobson's choice, right? So you're only giving them one option. You're saying, do you want this? Yes or no? So in our marketing, one of the easiest ways to add some level of autonomy bias is to give them more than one option to choose from. Because it subconsciously or consciously, it'll take that decision away from, do I want this or not, to saying, which of these do I like most? Or which of these would help me most? Right? And so even when you're in sales or in marketing, a great thing that if you can is go, how can we add multiple options for them to choose from? Now, you don't want too many. Most of the time I like to cap it at 3, but if you can move away from the Hobson's choice, it takes away the pressure of just yes or no and turns it into a which ones do I want, right? But here's the thing. Think about it this way, like other examples of autonomy bias that people will do. People will pay more money for snack packs, 100-calorie snack packs. They'll pay more money for those rather than just a box that's cheaper and has more volume of food in it. But because they have the feeling of control, they will pay more money for it. We will pay more money for a chair that has 3 positions instead of 2. We will pay more money to be able to choose our seat on the plane, right? Like all around us, there are showings and signs of people paying more and willing to pay more just to have more options, to feel like they are in control, right? A quick example, there was another sales letter that was written. It was back during I think the 70s. It was a telecommunications company. Another bigger company was starting to overcome the market share. They were taking so many of their customers, right? And so this smaller telecommunications company, they sent out a letter to all their customers to try to see if they could keep them, right? And the struggle, though, was that they weren't getting responses back from their customers, and the customers were clearly just not opening the mail, right? And when they were opening the mail and reading the letter, they weren't doing anything with it. So what they did that increased their conversion, their response rates by 57%, was they essentially added at the top of the sales page, the overview page, was basically saying, you have a very important decision to make, but if you don't make it right now, someone else will make it for you, right? I say this because sometimes in our marketing, it's hard for us to find ways to make it feel like we're giving them control. The expert move here is when you cannot make them feel like you're giving them control, find a world or create a world where something or someone else is taking away their control, right? Easy example of this is when we were selling Human X, one of the things that we were trying to do is like, man, how do we get more people engaged? And our whole thing was take control of your marketing, be able to scale with control and consistency. And that wasn't necessarily hitting. But one of the things that we did, I remember in one of the ads, and I think we also did an email too, but it was the concept of Zuck is taking your control. Right? Something else is taking your control. Or if you don't implement this system today, your control will be taken from you. And that encouraged a bigger response than the idea of hey, you're in control. So sometimes it's more potent of going, rather than giving them control, what else is taking their control? And then that's why they should use our product or service, right? So sometimes just flipping it on its head. But at the end of the day, humans by nature, we want to be in a state of control or feel like we're in a state of control. Here's the examples, right? Hotel reservations, smaller snack packs, stream music with no ads, beach chairs, fixed mortgage rate with a float down option that allows them to change the interest rate in the future, right? We pay more for so many different things in our life just so that we feel like we have control. So the more you can inflict that, it's great. This is really important, again, knowing You choose these principles or you choose these psychological tactics based on what you know your market's motivators are, right? So if you know your market is motivated by autonomy, then this is the type of stuff you want to use, right? So it's very important that even as I'm going through these principles, you don't just apply these principles to every market. You can, I guess, but it's better if you first go, what is the motivator that my market relies on? What really drives them? And then I'm going to pick the psychological tactics that I want to apply on that market because I know what that market responds to most, right? Some people in life, again, you've probably seen this, right? Some people in life could not care less about money. What they care about is time and freedom, right? So if I just use conspicuous consumption on that market, it don't work, right? If I use conspicuous consumption on a nomad entrepreneur community, it's probably not going to work, right? Because they're not as driven by having nice things. They're driven by the ability to choose. They're driven by the ability to spend time where they want to. So autonomy bias would be way more important than it would be conspicuous consumption. So it's very important to choose your markets correctly. Even the most basic things, it's honestly wild, guys, even just testing this, like in emails, this is an easy thing to test. Sometimes literally just adding the statement of BYAF, which is just saying, but you are free to, right? But you are free to ignore this page. But you are free to move on and not take advantage of the sale. Just reminding them that they have control and they can make a decision can actually increase conversion. So a fun test to try. Cool. Art number 3, let's move in. Loss aversion bias. Loss aversion bias. Hopefully you guys have heard this one before. I know I've mentioned it a lot, but loss aversion bias is that we are more inclined to avoid losses, to be adverse to them, than you are to make similar gains, right? So example, you are getting more displeasure if we're thinking energy meter level. You get more displeasure on the energy meter level on losing $50 than you do from gaining $50. Right? It is much more impactful to us personally, psychologically, when we feel like we've lost something versus if we gain something of the equal amount. Okay, it's much more potent to us. So understanding that loss aversion bias is something that we really, really want to avoid in life. Like we hate the idea of missing out on something or losing something, right? And this really plays on the idea of competence and security. Right? When we feel like we've lost something, there's that feeling like maybe I'm incompetent and I lost something and I'm embarrassed that this happened, right? Or security, right? In crypto, right? What did you see? So many people talking about like, oh, I didn't lose that much money, right? Oh, no, I'm fine. My things are great, right? Like some of them, it's like they lost everything. But the competence side, they don't want to admit it because they don't want to feel incompetent or seem incompetent to people, right? And then of course, security. So most marketers are trained to think in terms of benefits at all times, right? What's in it for my market? What's the desire? What do they get out of it? But new pockets of profit can be found in the enlightened pain and loss marketing can bring to the surface. What I mean by this is that there are the things of like, especially in luxury items, it's like, oh, there's not a real pain that my market has, and that's why they're purchasing, right? So like a Lamborghini, it's not like there's a real pain someone's going through, and that's like why they buy a Lamborghini, right? But in those situations, we also still know that pain is a bigger motivator than desire. So in these situations, there's also going, what pain though could you enlighten them to that they may not be recognizing by not having what you're trying to offer them? Here's the thing. As humans, we are wired to gather and collect rather than remove and subtract. We are designed to try to amass things. This is what we're doing. It goes back to our tribal days of just gathering, right? That we're not designed to just to get rid of stuff, right? Now you have the people who have like enlightened themselves and they're minimalists now, but as humans, by majority, our goal is to try to amass more. Right? So understanding that biological underpinning will allow your copy messaging to appeal to the primal hardwiring of the market. Okay. So here's the thing. The key is not focusing merely on the direct benefit or pain someone is experiencing by engaging with your product or service, but rather focusing on the pain and loss someone will consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously experience by not taking you up on your offer. So what are the things they're missing out on? Okay, so example, Maxwell Sackheim, the inventor of the Book of the Month Club, is the writer of the world's longest running ad of all time. Okay, you guys have probably heard this ad before. Hopefully you have, but it says, do you make these mistakes in English? This ad ran for 40 years unchanged. right? Imagine that for fatigue. You know, how many of you guys would like that? Have an ad that lasts 40 years unchanged and does really well over and over and over again. And the only reason it ever stopped running is because the company sold, right? So this ad just works so well. But this ad plays on the loss aversion bias by drawing attention to unrealized loss, right? Do you make these mistakes in English? Now, all of a sudden, what are we thinking? Well, shit, I don't know. Like, am I making some mistakes in English? Like, am I dumb? Like, what am I missing? I don't know. They're enlightening on you on a potential loss or deficit that you have now, right? But you're not just walking through the street going, man, I just really make a lot of mistakes in English, right? All he was selling here was a book for how to speak better, right? So it's like, or how to write better and how to use English better, right? Like, many people would talk about write English better course, 50% off. That would be like their direct headline, their basic thing here. But that's not sexy. No, it's like selling in a book on how to do better at English is not sexy at all. So what he had to do is like, how do I spin this to make this now all of a sudden attractive in their mind? Loss aversion bias does this really well, right? Here's some other examples, right? Insane facts about Bitcoin, number 12. $100 in Bitcoin. If you invested $100 in Bitcoin July 10th, 2010, it would be worth $2 billion, right? We're not thinking about that on the day-to-day. But if I can enlighten you on what you're missing out on or what you have missed out on, all of a sudden now I've got your attention. If this ad was just saying invest in Bitcoin, then it wouldn't do nearly as well. But it's enlightening you on a loss that you had experienced, right? Another one, search for unclaimed money. There's more than 40 billion sitting in state governments. Is any of it yours, right? All of a sudden, I'm enlightening you on what you perhaps do not have anymore or do not have access to or have missed out on. It makes it more sexy. The simplest version of this type of thing, though, is also limited edition. Limited edition just brings up the concept of you will miss out if you don't take action. It's even in the simplest things. We don't always have to think macro. It's got to be grandiose in how we're drawing it out. There's little nuances that we can do in our marketing that just bring up the concept of they will miss out, right? So another easy example of this is like Uber Eats, right? I think I saw a commercial of this before. Maybe it's one I made up for a piece of content. I don't know. But anyway, the whole idea was like, Uber Eats is always just about, you know, getting food fast, right? But if you wanted to do a loss aversion bias, the concept of Uber Eats wouldn't just be don't have to leave your home or whatever. The idea of Uber Eats would be like, imagine the big game, right? Imagine, you know, it's the championship game and you're watching it and you're getting ready. And all of a sudden, you know, your spouse steps in front of the TV and is like, you said you would get dinner an hour ago. Now you have to leave the big game to go get dinner, right? And all that stuff. And the whole concept of that would be the idea of like educating on them on what they could be missing out on. If I just talked about the idea of ordering food from your phone and get it really fast and whatever, that's okay. But if I could also pair that with, hey, get Uber Eats so that you don't miss out on the things you enjoy in life, right? Or if you wanted to go family route, if I knew my market was family oriented, it'd be like, you don't have to stop playing with your kids to get dinner delivered, right? Or the stressed out mom who like gets home from a long day at work and is super stressed and now like think she has to make dinner and stuff like that. And like her kids and her spouse is playing with kids in the other room and she's missing out on all that joy and all that excitement, all those memories because she's in the kitchen cooking after a long day at work. Or she could just use Uber Eats, right? That would be an example of loss aversion bias where it's like, think about the things you're not understanding. It's not surface level, but these are the things you could miss out on, right? You could also do it in a positive sense. Thinking of the idea of that, hey, your neighbor has the coolest car on the street, right? And the idea of like, you're not that cool car one. You're the one who's in the crowd looking at your neighbor's house. They've got the coolest car and everyone thinks they're the coolest. Like that's another example of bringing out loss aversion bias of, in a positive sense of like, there's the pleasures that you are not realizing because you're not working with this or you haven't bought this product. Make sense? Cool. Art number 4. Self-serving bias. Okay, so this is super simple, super easy. Self-serving bias is the idea that we are prone to alter our perception of causality, so to protect and enhance our own self-esteem. Okay, example, we all know this, right? Winning the championship. If you win, it's because you worked hard. If you lost, it's because the other team cheated. Right? If you take end of year exam, right? If you got an A+, because you were smart and you studied. If you got an F, the teacher hated you. Advertising your business. If you got a 5x ROAS, it's because you have a great offer and product. If you got a 1x ROAS, it's because the ad agency sucked, right? As humans, we are constantly looking for ways to say, how is it not our fault? How can we blame what we are experiencing on other people? And we have a tendency to do that naturally. Now, the more self-aware you get, the more emotionally intelligent you get, the better you are at filtering that. But by and large, most people are not highly emotionally intelligent, and therefore they will look for the excuse. As marketers, we can play on this, right? Blair Warren, one of my favorite quotes on copy of all time, says people will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies, right? If we can do this, we will convert anyone. If you can help someone encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies, they will do anything for you. Right? So the more we can do this in our marketing, the better. How does this look? Well, easy examples, right? You see this ad on the far left, right? It's from Lucky's back then, right? 20,679 physicians say Lucky's are less irritating. It's toasted. Cigarettes. They're advertising cigarettes. And what are they saying here? They're saying it's not your fault your throat hurts. You're smoking the wrong brand, right? They're just helping throw rocks, give excuses to why they're experiencing the thing they're experiencing and casting it on something else. Right? Next one, how to get the U.S. What the U.S. government owes you. Right? It's not your fault you're poor. The government is stealing from you. Right? Next one, time, the weight loss trap, low carb, low fat, paleo, vegan, flexitarian, why your diet isn't working. Right? This one, it's not your fault you're fat. You're following the wrong diet. Right? If we can take the reason why people think or the reason why people are failing, and we can narrow it down to a reason why they have not achieved the results they want, and we can focus in on that, this is a massive way that you can get more conversions, right? If you're selling supplements, this is where you are most of the time. This is the psychological principle you want to use most of the time, right? What is the ingredient that makes this unique and why the other ones have failed, right? If you've taken this supplement, it's because it doesn't have this one ingredient, which causes this special thing to happen with your gut bacteria. And the gut is the main reason for digestion and processing food and metabolism and all that. And so if your gut health is wrong, well, then nothing will ever work. And that's why it's never worked in the past. But this supplement has this special ingredient that does this with the gut, that helps the gut. When your gut's good, it does this, it does that, blah, blah, blah. It's not your fault. You're where you're at. It's you were taking the wrong supplement. You didn't have this one thing that would allow you to achieve success, right? And so obviously we need to be ethical and make sure that this stuff is correct. But if you can understand this and you can figure out what are the rocks that we can throw at their enemies, the other competitors, the other products, their past experiences, we can understand that about the market. This is a great one to use for these types of prospects, right? Cool. So there's positive and neutral reinforcement. Right? So what we want to do here, ways to invoke the self-serving bias. We want to highlight legacy and history. We want to pre-frame an anchoring behavior you like about your prospect and you want to see more of them, right? So example, if I know that they're adventurous, if I'm an outdoors brand, right, and I'm selling apparel for outdoors or rock climbing gear or whatever, if I can start enforcing their identity, right? They're a risk taker. You live for adventure, blah, blah, blah. The more I can enforce those types of behaviors in the beginning into their psychology, the more likely they are to agree and also have correlating behavior, right? So this is also why, example, they talk about like in magicians or illusionists or pickup artists, when they're talking to people, they will set these baseline anchors with people as they engage with them early on. Example, would you consider yourself a curious person? Would you consider yourself to be spontaneous? As soon as I ask that question, by nature, most people will say yes to those positive type traits. If I ask you guys, are you adventurous? Most people will say yes, right? Even if they're not that adventurous. But if I get you to agree to that anchor, now when I ask something in the future that would require you to either reject your previous statement of saying I am adventurous or enforce it, I'm more likely to get basically agreeance from you or compliance from you, right? If I ask you, hey, would you consider yourself a spontaneous person? And then I follow with that a few minutes later of basically asking you to do something that's spontaneous, you're more likely to say yes because now you have to reinforce the idea of being spontaneous, right? Another thing you can do is emphasize the prospects by taking the action they want is them directly influencing their own success, right? Example, you are paving the way for your success, right? Or you're getting X problem solved by just clicking this button, right? Or the first step is clicking this button, right? Getting them to take those micro steps, but essentially allowing them to feel like they're the person driving their own solutions and that it's not their fault they are where they are, right? Old way versus new way. It's not your fault inside of your copy, right? You've brilliantly stumbled upon this page. Most are perfectly content watching others figure it out, but not you, right? Using this type of stuff to enforce their behavior inside of their psychology and getting them to comply with what you want. Art number 5, and then we're wrapped. Art of present bias and hyperbolic discounting. So I'll go through this pretty quickly. Present bias is basically the idea that we overvalue near-term rewards, all right? Hyperbolic discounting is people value instant gratification, okay? Very similar things. We can use these really well. So first, thoroughly explored by psychologist Sigmund Freud, basically humans are driven by the desire to experience pleasure, right? This is what his whole philosophy is. People have a tendency to prioritize immediate rewards over long-term benefits. This is why we would rather invest in crypto than the S&P 500. Right? This is why we would rather take investments that have a big upside and high risk, and maybe they're dumb investments, but they have higher benefits versus, hey, just putting in a Roth 401k. You know what I mean? So these are the things that people naturally will do. Example, J.G. Wentworth, their whole concept, basically they do structured settlements, which is settlements over a longer period of time, but you get more money up front versus a long trial, then waiting and then getting a payment, right? So they created this commercial. You guys, if you're a millennial, you probably remember it. It's my money. I need it now. That commercial came out, and basically the leads and the call volume increased by 50%, and this ad directly produced $10 million. This was their best ad they ever did, from this idea of, I want something and I want it now, even though realistically, structured settlements will pay you less money, but you get money quicker, essentially. Okay? Then Snickers, if you guys remember those commercials, right? They are grumpy. They're using some kind of influencer. They eat a Snickers bar and all of a sudden they're happy. And then they're themselves again, right? And the whole idea is like, you're not yourself when you're hungry, right? Their whole idea is instant satisfaction. From 2007 to 2009, Snickers experienced sales growth decline, okay? So they were losing money. In 2009, they released this ad campaign that it's not you when you're hungry, that showed the instant satisfaction. And basically, in the first year of worldwide broadcast, it increased Snickers' worldwide sales by 15.9%, which is a massive deal for a billion-dollar company. Okay, 15.9% is no joke. And they gained market shares in 56 of the 58 markets that they actually had, right? And a lot of this can be brought back to just even the psychological concept of instant satisfaction, getting what you want right away, okay? So immediate things that you can do here, focus on immediate benefits that a customer will receive, right? What are the immediate things that they will feel or like or experience, right? Even with free 2-day shipping on orders above X, free hassle-free returns, unboxing videos, and PDP pages. This will also help because it gives clarity, right? So immediate benefits that a customer could have is faster shipping. It could be free shipping, hassle-free returns, even if you're showing them the picture of the idea that, hey, you're going to get more benefit even in the back end of this product or the back end of this transaction, can increase their feeling of hyperbolic discounting or getting pleasure faster, right? Implementing the buy now, pay later options, right? Payment plans. These are all ways that you can increase the idea of getting something now, getting it faster, quicker, more easier, more convenient. So this is why e-com uses apps like Affirm, Shop Pay, payment plans, all this kind of stuff, because this is a way to make someone feel like they're getting a lot more, a lot faster. Right? Gain more benefits and value by signing longer term contracts, right? So this is an example of why, like AT&T, if you sign a 4-year contract, 3-year contract, you get your phone for free, right? They have other plans, but if you're willing to go into a bigger commitment long-term, which we are less likely to calculate, less likely to appreciate, if you sign longer, then you get more upfront, right? You get more things now. Right, so you can see this in all types of subscription plans, is that if you are giving a bigger investment or a longer term investment, which might actually be worse for you in the long run, but if you do a thing now, you'll get an instant satisfaction, right? If you add this product here, then we'll give you this free gift, right? So we're just trying to play on the idea of they want something better, they want something now, right? A lot of ways you can do that. Cool? Guys, those are the 5 arts. Good to nerd out with you guys. Glad you guys came. Apply those principles. Let me know how it goes. I want to see someone who's tested this and tests something, bring back some wins. I love seeing people think deeply about marketing and psychology and applying tests. Let's go do the best that we can. We have businesses we need to help, entrepreneurs to support, and a world to change. All right, guys. Peace.